These bi-weeklies are really important for the community to get to understand what we're working on the back end. Answer all your questions, of course. We thought we'll try and mix it up a little bit today. Me and Jason and I will have a conversation between us, mainly about on-chain. We mentioned this in our podcast that we did the other day, our live recording about a month ago. On-chain is the new online, so we're going to talk about that for a little bit. Then after we finish, we'll definitely take some questions that you guys have dropped in. We've got about 10 in total, and we'll go through them as much as we can.
Cool. Lead the way, Mr. Moderator.
Tell me about it. So we mentioned about a month ago a lot of great news, especially with our dashboard getting released and showing you guys live how it works. But more importantly, we try to paint a picture for everybody what we're trying to achieve in the space. As you guys, a lot of the same questions, like ramps, when's this coming, when's that coming? But what you guys probably don't realize is the bigger picture of it all, where it's just not sending over, an API to a ramp and saying good luck. That's part of our business model. What we're trying to do is change the behavior in the space for people in the real world and in the crypto world to join forces. And we want to go into this world of on-chain. And Jason will go through, deeply dive into what on-chain means, because a lot of people in here just haven't got a clue what that means at all. And we want to just alliterate to everyone in here sort of an end goal, where we want to achieve, where we're going to go with it, because obviously we've got the fiat token coming, getting released very shortly, and then where we're going to go from that and how we're going to build this network around our on-chain.
Cool. Thanks, Ben. So for some of you that might be redundant, but nonetheless, I think the kind of educational side of what is this thing of on-chain will probably be omnipresent for the next couple of years. So part of it is new learning, and the other part is reinforcement learning. Because every single day there is more to understand, there is more to learn, there's more underlying technologies or advancements that are enabling more of this transition and removing a bunch of complexities and walls to facilitate this adoption. And I mean, Ben says I'm going to dive deeply into it. I think, I might want to cover two things while I'm diving into it, which I mean, I have no clue how old, most of our community is and on average, but if I talk from my experience, I'm turning 40 at the end of the month. So, I'm very much, I very much remember the offline world and prior to having even dial up, let alone broadband and everything. So this movement or this migration or this change of going online was very much part of my youth. And it was quite abstract for, the adults around me, including my parents. What is this? What is that? Very much ingrained in past behaviors, etc. So when you think about going online in the broad kind of sense of what it means, going online is this kind of series of Web 1 and Web 2. And if you haven't, and I'm going to paint a picture with that respect, but if you haven't read this new book, which is Read, Write, Own, from I think his name is Chris Nixon. It kind of paints the picture of these three big steps, and from a web perspective, it all started with being able to read online, so access to information. That was kind of the first wave of going online. So kind of digitizing a lot of things that were offline, whether it's just general knowledge, math, real basic stuff, that we took for kind of granted offline. And then that was kind of, the early stages of the internet, the 90s, and that led to the .com. And then eventually you started seeing the Web 2. And the Web 2 is still very much the web in which we live, which is kind of the right era. And writing meaning in the sense of what is called UGC. And UGC is effectively user generated content. So it's kind of this thing that it started with blogging, where people were not just able to consume content, but they could also create content. So that's kind of the right era, social media, etc. But that led to kind of this immense value creation. And this immense value creation was effectively concentrated in a bunch of concentrated closed network or privately owned massive enterprises, where effectively everybody that were creating content and that are still creating content today, they don't own kind of the value of that content. It's basically the ownership of these various conglomerate, whether they're a social media, whether they're an information platform, etc. And the last phase of it all is kind of, and I'm not going to dive into all the underlying details, but some of Web 1 initial proposition was to also kind of distribute the ownership and to make it freely available through underlying protocols like SMTP and, the email that we use today, or the web per se. Some interesting parallels that you may not know, but like things like ENS names are effectively kind of a domain name that are referencing an underlying kind of address, which is kind of your wallet address. But a domain name is just kind of easily or human readable way of like your like website numbers, which is like 192 point whatever, which is really hard to remember. So there's this thing that was invented, which are domain names that point to this thing underneath. And that domain name, I mean, if you're not happy with one provider, you can take it somewhere else. And there's this kind of communication between the domain name and the underlying protocol that you can take basically that elsewhere. So it's kind of this open and free market per se. And so the last part, which is, the blockchain part, effectively lets you own your whatever you create. There's a possibility of you owning. So whether it's value or network or, money per se, or currency, let's say. And that phase is basically one that most people are unaware that it's creeping up and it's coming, but we qualify it as kind of an equivalent version of going online, and we call it going on chain. And going on chain simply means that whatever happens over there, there's this, dependent on how it's built, there's a strong possibility that you can basically own it. And the promise of this is extremely powerful because I think ownership is extremely important. Maybe you want to bounce on this, Ben, but yeah, I don't know if you have any thoughts you want to share, but I think at the end of the day, especially with value and the things that you work hard to earn, these dollars or whatever, these euros or those pounds or wherever you are in the world, and maybe you're not aware of this, but if you dive into it, and we could do, at some point we might do a session on this, but the normal TradFi system, like, it owns your money. Like, you don't own your money. Whatever's in the bank, it's not yours. And we can provide supporting material if you think that's not the case. But I think Web3 has this promise, and this is kind of the discussion around, centralized custody versus self-custody. But yeah, do you want to say something on this?
Yeah, people in the real world notice, but especially with banks. I give you an example. My bank, if I deposit £100 into my bank, they will probably take 80% of that. It shows up on my computer screen on my app that the £100 in there, but they actually take a huge percentage of it. They then give it to someone else for a mortgage, or they give it to someone else for a loan. They actually use your money to make them money. That's how they circulate money throughout the banks, and that's how the banking system works. You don't effectively own that asset in your bank. If you go to your local bank and you draw £1,000, can't physically do it because they haven't got the money sitting there. Even though it says it on your digital screen, it's there, it's not there. And I think with blockchain and this world, you actually own the money. It's uncustodial. So you can actually receive that money at any point of any time. You can go into the real world, use your card, buy anything, and it is actually yours. And I think that people haven't clicked onto this at the moment, and it's absolutely nuts. Where owning your own assets is surely the most important thing in the real world, but the real world has just not clicked on just yet. But we do believe the data is showing that it is going that way, where people are starting to realize and wake up. We generally believe the next generation will more and more actually want to own their own assets.
Yeah, I mean, at some point it'll be ambiguous to think that you don't own your money, or whatever piece of value you create on the internet or on chain. It'll become quite normal to own whatever you create. So I think the segue that we can take from there is kind of what elements are, if the value proposition is so kind of obvious in terms of, like, who would argue that owning, like, stuff versus having someone else own it and extract value from that ownership versus you being able to extract value from it. Like, if this is kind of a given that it's a strong proposition, like, what's stopping people from actually being able to leverage this ownership or to dive, straight into it? Well, I think, I'm not going to do a 101 on adoption, but there's two main things, generally speaking, that stand out generally when you think about adoption. One of them is the learning curve. And this is the one thing we've been talking about significantly, at length, is if you're bringing something new to the market, but the requirements of learning the ins and out of the usability of this product or this service is very, very high, then the likelihood of actually acquiring a broad customer base or user adoption is quite low. It's actually very, very low. So the learning curve, you want that to be as low as possible, meaning that the understanding of the product needs to be ubiquitous. Like, it needs to be so simple that anybody can not only communicate it to others, as in what it is and what it can do, but also the actual interaction with it should be extremely frictionless in various formats. And the second thing is kind of customer behavior. So it could be super easy to understand. That's one part. But if for you to extract value of this requires you to change your way of operating or your way of behavioring. I'll give you an example. If you were to change banks, but like this bank just so complex, like to set up, and then ultimately from the moment that you're in, most of how you can extract value from it is it's not working anywhere. Like it's great, but I can't use it, so I have to go to specific places, or like it's as if you had this ATM card that would only work in one specific ATM versus being able to put it in all the ATMs and extract value out of it. If you have to go to this one ATM, like it creates like this kind of, I have to go out of my way, and like it's going to put a lot of kind of friction into the adoption of that product. So when you launch something, or at least when you consider introducing something in the landscape of someone's environment, and you want them to come in, you need to meet those two things. One of them being the lowest threshold in terms of understanding. So barrier to entry with regards to knowledge needs to be near nil, basically. Like when anyway, I mean, even instruction manuals. I mean, when's the last time you actually read an instruction manuals? Because products are so intuitive today, even the most complex ones, you don't require manuals anymore. But at some point, you
Haven't been to
you
IKEA
have to
recently.
constant.
You haven't been to IKEA recently, then. IKEA, you need a
Yeah, but even
manual.
IKEA, yeah, but even IKEA at some point, if you've put them together, sufficient amount of times, you kind of intuitively kind of figure it out. You understand these pieces. That's how they get put together, and etc. But so that's one part, and the other part is, yeah, you need to make sure that it fits in the user's behavior without altering it. They can keep going about their day or their normal interaction, and leverage and extract value from this in a very normal and habit driven way. So to circle back to basically, us, and this is very, very, very kind of meta kind of approach to it, but without going into kind of the ins and out of the features and the benefits and all of those things, ultimately what we're building is enabling, or like abstracting the need for someone to know technically how blockchain works or on-chain transactions. And on the other side, we're also making sure that however these products are deployed in the market, that the most amount of value can be extracted from them without altering someone's kind of day-to-day habits. Like it fits seamlessly in that lifestyle. Like there's no new things you need to do. And I'll give you an example. Most of the crypto cards that exist out there, they're Ben knows more about them than I do, but the fundamentals of them are that they are prepaid, and they don't let you, also beyond that. That's already something that's annoying. The second thing is that you can't even put any asset, from a a prepaid perspective, into this card. So it's kind of a siloed card with a siloed asset with a specific type of behavior that you need to adopt to actually be able to leverage this. That requires even you to perform prior steps to be even able to top it up first. And we believe that even if you give the best rewards and you make it extremely attractive from an incentive perspective, you're not going to get adoption because it's just so hard to adopt. It requires you to change your behavior. And this is why we're like, if we are to bring something, or if we are to bring, a technology that enables new opportunities, that they enable them in such a way that they fit or they meet the user's kind of already well ingrained habits. And it's kind of this expression of sweeping kind of, or removing the rug under someone's feet without even them noticing, or pulling the tablecloth without, altering kind of all the cutlery and the plates and the glasses so fast that nothing changes, and it's been swapped, and now, you can keep on going. But I don't know if you want to add something to this, Ben.
I think when you're dealing with the real world and you're dealing with crypto, and we can go about this 100 times, when you're going into the crypto space for the first time, you talk about changing habits. People are from the real world go into the crypto sphere, and it's very, very complicated, very super complicated to even going into all these different exchanges, going through all these dexes, learning about slippage, learning about contract addresses that are this long, learning to download a wallet or download this. It should just be so simple. And this way it can't be so simple. Again, when you're bridging from a chain to chain or anything, or you're going into the real world and you're using a card, as you mentioned, where you have to have the asset that token supplies that card. Ben token supplies a card, you have to buy Ben token. You can't use any other token in your wallet. It just makes zero sense. What we're trying to do is build a world for cryptocurrency where the real world people can come in and it's just so streamlined and simple and clean and beautiful. They don't have to learn. They don't need that manual. They don't need anything. And the power of that will start changing behavior. And we will look back and we're like, when we talk about phones, when I used to have a Nokia 3210 and it was this brick phone, now everyone has apps on their phone. Remember the days in 5 years, 10 years where we had to go through all these hoops and loops and all these complicated ways of doing things. And I understand with crypto, it's more about trading, but I want to try and start changing that behavior from trading to using it in the real world. And that's mixing the two can be absolutely phenomenal for us.
I don't know if anybody has questions on these specific topics, or have thoughts that they want to share about this kind of new era, which, ultimately at some point everything will be on chain and will be quite normal. Feel free to raise your hand and we'll bring you on stage. Otherwise, we can, jump into some questions and answer them.
Yeah, let's do that. Everyone got any questions actually want to speak on stage? That'd be absolutely superb. We'd love to hear your voices as well. Don't be shy.
All right. You don't have to. That's fine.
Fine. Right, let me go through some of the questions that we've got then. Give me 10 seconds while I pull them up. Right, so let's talk about staking, because obviously that happened a few days ago. We stopped the enabling of staking. So I think a lot of people in the community want to know, what is the future of staking? Are the rewards going to carry on, and how long they're going to carry on for? And what is the plan there?
Well, the plan has been, from my understanding, and I've been reading, all the communications with regards to it, I think the plan is pretty clear. There's nothing that hasn't been really, unanswered. If someone wants to know, and figure out anything about it, but I can reiterate. Ultimately, the initial kind of promise as we get into product delivery would be to give an incentive in the form of kind of a of gratitude to to stay around. So we created this staking contract and allocated X amount of tokens to be given in the form of rewards. And we initially had expected to run this for about 2 years, and yeah, we've extended it further than originally expected. We're doing calculation internally with regards to how much we gave in rewards, and we're gonna come out with a report and share it with everyone. But the numbers are pretty wild in terms of distributed value, and these are just going to get wilder as if there's a price increase, obviously this value moves with it. So if there were 1 point something million in terms of value is as we do 10x or whatever, I mean this distributed value goes up in price or in value as well. So we're pretty proud of how it went and pretty satisfied. And I think most of you that took advantage of it and participated are probably pretty happy with it as well. At the end of the day, it's free money. And with regards to what's next, as we clearly communicated, whoever had a specific, schedule that was still active will be honored until the end date and with the respective yields. For anyone that is ending that period, I mean, we're not going to give infinite amounts of money. We're yet to finalize that bit, but it's not going to last very long, and you could expect some announcement with regards to that. So whichever kind of staking schedule has expired and you haven't withdrawn the asset from the contract, it will basically stop at that point. So yeah, that's basically it from where I'm sitting and from the interactions I'm having with most people. I think everybody's pretty excited about what they were able to get out of it. Not everyone went for full years and 1 and 2, but you have to have your trust through the roof in the team, and ultimately it paid off for these people. So yeah,
definitely. And the rewards that are in the pool that are left, obviously, guys, remember, if you're staked for another year, you will get that full year's worth. If you staked from December last year, you'll finish in December this year. So you'll still receive all of that. So please do not worry.
Yeah.
Move on to the next stuff. Obviously, we get this question a lot. I know we reiterate it a lot, but with the ramps going forward, obviously we've been in touch with them for a few months. How are they all going? And yeah, can you tell us anything more about the ramp side of things?
Well, not specifically. As I said in the previous AMAs, I think from a product perspective, the product is ready. It's in the hands of many of them. And with regards to them deploying it into production, it's contingent on many things on their end, and it's not. Even though we can push it as much as possible, I mean, at some point, it's really up to them to take it to market in whichever kind of order that fits with their engineering timeline and priorities and marketing schedule. And what I can say is a lot of them have been focused on off-ramping, because with any kind of cycle that generates value, a lot of people want to take that value out, and most on-ramps did not have the capacity of off-ramping. So since the start of the year, a lot of them are like, yes, yes, yes. Let us wrap up kind of the off ramping, and once this is done, we'll queue it in and put it into market. And with regards to us, like I said, this product is ready, and we've already moved on, and from us kind of focusing on new products and things like that. You have to see kind of the on-chain listing API product as an enterprise product, and these cycles are very, very long. There's ultimately, from a market perspective, and Ben can attest to this much better than I can, but there's probably about only 20 ramps that are worth mentioning. So this is high level enterprise integration. And if you Google enterprise kind of life cycle, you'll see that, onboarding 6 to 12 months. That's generally the cycle, when you want to integrate at this level. But I think what matters most, and this is maybe we can hint at this, Ben, but I think what matters most, and lucky maybe some of you that are here today, is we've developed this technology for others, but we're not dumb. We have thoughts about what could we do with this product, and part of it powers what is yet to be rebranded as on-chain checkout, which effectively lets crypto projects deploy this on their website and effectively enable payments in various formats, including fiat in various formats, both accounts and cards, and also crypto. That's a pretty complicated product. The new version of it is very complex. But I think where your imagination needs to kind of go with this is, and I think that's truly powerful, which is, on one end, you have these established ramps that have already a defined supported kind of list of supported assets, whether it's 20, whether it's 30, whether it's 200, whether it's 75. And what the on-chain listing API lets them do is go from that, which they might not change, or maybe they will change it. But the proposition is, hey, there's all this whirl on chain that, every single time a project used to knock on your door, you'd be basically forced to say no. You can't support their asset. And then you can say, kind of, sometimes they open the door to the possibility, but that possibility is, generally speaking, not something that is truly realistic, for a project. Maybe you want to, tap on this then, for a minute or two, but it's not a win-win-win proposition to be supported by a ramp. Generally speaking, it means, you need to most probably get listed on a centralized exchange. And the cost and the time to go through that, I mean, very few projects can afford it.
Yeah, it's between 50 to 100 grand just to get listed on one ramp. Then there's 20 ramps, so you can imagine what the costings are. It takes between 6 to 12 months depending on the ramp. So not only have you forked out the money, you've got to wait all that time. And let's be honest, this is crypto. Who knows what you're going to be in 12 months' time? If you're even going to be alive in 12 months' time as a project. So it's just not worth it for them, where you say you can go on an exchanges a lot quicker. So they don't get bothered to be listed on ramps, where now we can give ramps the power to just an asset on. And not only that, the only thing the project has to do once they get our API is clear the clearing protocol. That's all they have to do to get listed. So it means it will clean up the space as well, meaning less scams going on, less rug pulls, less this, because they don't need most platforms at all. So a lot more people would trust people who have got listed through the API for ourselves onto these ramps. But yeah, it's just not financially worth it to go to the ramp. And also the ramp itself, it's a lot of paperwork, a lot of time, and it's for a token that's probably going to bring them very minimal worth of transactions.
Yeah, so the next kind of question you have to ask yourself is kind of is that model really sustainable? Like the way it operates and the way kind of you are led to or you can participate in this model. So it brings you to a place where you have to, kind of ask yourself, if there were a better way, what would it be? And going back to this whole introduction of this AMA, which is, we believe that on-chain is the new online, then that begs the question that why should, like, why wouldn't ramps be effectively, well, first of all, they don't need to be called ramps. They should just be like payment gateways. We've said this before, the actual coined name or the label that's been given to ramp, it only exists because it's an action you need to perform to be able to do the other action you want to do after. But if you abstract and you remove this forced step, then you no longer on ramp. You just check out. That's it. You just check out. You buy what you want to buy, and there's no other steps after. So it creates a real kind of dilemma for most of these ramps that exist out there. If there is a ramp that lets the end user or the consumer fulfill his transaction, or at least lets them purchase his end intent in one step, then there's no need to on ramp. Like that goes away. That requirement completely goes away. So what we've been kind of thinking for quite some time is, what if there could be this thing that could be basically called, quote unquote, a super ramp that would let anybody put a, quote unquote, again, a ramp, just so we, have this ongoing thread that we understand each other. Like, what if anybody could put this ramp on their website, and in the same respect, like an on ramp, what if they could just go in the dashboard, this on-chain listing dashboard, and select whichever asset they want to sell, whatever the vertical, whatever their interest, and effectively there would be a revenue share on the transaction with, like, the directed traffic that goes through this ramp from this person, project, influencer, or whatever. By coming to our website, they sign up, whoever they are, they sign up, and then they can deploy this on their website or wherever in a couple minutes. They go and log into their dashboard, and if they want to enable just assets on Arbitrum, because we will have developed the fiat side from a payments perspective. So if you're connecting the dots by building on-chain checkout from a fiat payments perspective and a crypto payments perspective, and we annex kind of this free-willing type of possibility of listing any on-chain asset and enabling them an interface that we've created, because it's the Ember on-chain checkout flow, then, like, anybody can be a ramp now, and they can basically decide overnight, like, I'm going to sell this one. Oh no, I don't want to sell it anymore. I'm going to sell that one. And they can be extremely nimble, extremely fast. So we think that, this is, if this would exist, that that would completely disrupt the market, like completely disrupt it and change what is to be perceived as on ramping. That would just go away. Like overnight, there is no purpose for basically all the established ramps that exist. They would just go away. They just nobody would go see them anymore. So that's
Yeah.
what we're working on next.
If you're a project and you take this on your website, if you're just a customer buying that token, you go onto their website, you can buy any token as well. Over time, you can do the any to any, and then obviously off ramp as well. You will never need to go to a MoonPay. You will never need to go to a Transact. You will never need to go over here or over there to a DEX, to a ramp, to anywhere. You can just do it straight on the project's website. Literally, we're bringing
or
people.
wherever. I think it goes beyond the project's website. I mean, the project website, it will always be relevant for them to have a dedicated payment flow for their own asset or their multiple asset on various chains, and that's extremely important. But there are going to be hundreds, if not thousands, of people, and you kind of have to see it almost like, you know, a Shopify, which is anybody can start a store and sell stuff. And this is kind of democratizing the access to on-chain asset, and anybody can basically start selling them. I mean, we're going to be the one compliant. You don't need to be compliant as a person. The whole product is compliant. All you have to do is you become kind of an affiliate and you make money by selling these assets on chain, and you don't need permission from anyone, you know, to start selling them, because it's a permissionless market, and that's decentralized finance. So you can just put it there. There's going to be thousands of assets in the dashboard on all of these various different chains, and it'll, you know, have all the latest ones that are not available anywhere else. You know, you'll be able to list them and add them, so you become your own ramp, or you become your own exchange if you want. You know, if you want to call it an exchange, it's kind of an, like, ultimately it's, you know, you can enable any of them at free will. But us on our end, you know, we have all this due diligence and responsibility of servicing these assets in a dashboard. On one end, they need to pass the clearing protocol, and then you'll have also all this Ember verified added layer of trustworthiness of the leaders and the promoters of that project, you know, behind this asset. So you, on the other end, you could go on your dashboard and say, you know what, I'm just gonna like enable these verified projects. I'm not gonna, you know, enable the ones that haven't been verified. So it creates a strong incentive on the token side, because yes, there's this API integration for, you know, well-established and ramps that want to extend what they support in terms of asset to other things, you know, on chain. And if they, you know, they have a project that approaches them, they can say, yeah, you know, you're available, and you know, we can list you, and you can, you know, we can start selling your asset tomorrow. And that's cool. But, you know, there is going to be, and we want to be the ones that empower this, is really democratize the access to on-chain asset first and foremost, but also give anybody the opportunity of selling it and to make a piece of you know, from an affiliate perspective, to make money out of it, because we will have built this, you know, this first basically self-serve on-demand product that anybody can ship in a matter of couple minutes on their website, because it's all hosted, it's all compliant, it has all the built-in mechanism on both the supply side, and then you can bring on your own demand. If you have a high traffic website, if you're kind of a news outlet, or if you're, you know, whatever, you can then create, you know, direct links between content and these assets. Give you an example. You know, if you have an article talking about this project, what would stop you from creating kind of this direct link to enable the payment of this thing in the same way as, let's say, you see an ad for, this handbag or this software or whatever, and have direct payments to go and convert the audience that are excited about this product. I mean, we're productizing essentially on-chain assets and enabling anybody to sell them. And this is the whole supply. Like, the supply is on chain, and we want to make it available. It's kind of this big warehouse. And you, as someone on the other side, you're like, hey, there's demand for these things, or I can drive, or I can create demand. I know I have the network, and I have kind of this ambition of creating a business out of this. And, some of you might say, well, you can already do this with MoonPay. You go to MoonPay or you go to Transact, and you can sign up, do KYB, and then take their ramp and put it on your website. Yeah, but you have zero control on the assets that are in there. Like, it's like you put it on your website and it has these 200 assets. You can't do anything about it. It's all these blue chips that nobody wants. And ultimately, if you're changing kind of, or you're enabling this behavior that people want to do, which is buy the end asset, then what's the point of buying these assets that nobody wants or cares about anymore? Because ultimately, the 5, 6, 7 top assets that are being sold by these ramps are gas, native tokens. But people don't want to buy natives anymore.
YouTubers, like, literally every day, hundreds of thousands, literally every single day, talking about a token. Imagine they just had that link that just goes directly to buy that token. Once they've talked about it for 20 minutes and boosting it up and everything, there's the link, drop it in, buy it directly. It just, and they will have tens or hundreds of followers, looking, views, everything. It'll all go through our payment gateway.
Instead of sending people to a DEX and not extracting value from that referral, now maybe relationships that you, as a token project, maybe you don't need to pay an influencer makes his own money. He decides which token he wants to talk about because they are in demand already.
If something's pumping, they talk about it, they get the revenue share from that. It's great. The little slice of the pie themselves, the earning. Projects won't need to advertise. Just literally whatever's doing well, give it to the influencers. They'll take it on. There's loads of influencers that talk about how to buy a token. Their whole network can be literally use the API and use the payment gateway.
Cool.
Right.
What a surprise.
Yeah, and this is why I'm trying to get at with ramps and stuff as well, guys. When we talk about ramps, when are ramps coming out, all these NDAs, it's important to understand we are doing something, shall we say, that we won't actually need the ramps anymore. Even though the ramps is a great side thing that we're doing and it's very important, it will bring in a lovely piece. It's a case of we're building something or doing something or talking about something that potentially could be a lot bigger. So don't worry about it too much. Got your back. Roadmap. Let's talk about roadmap. We've been promising a roadmap for, not promising, but like for a little while that we'll be producing a roadmap. When do you reckon the community can start seeing our this year's sort of goals and achievements?
Yeah, we're just so busy. It's not for lack of will or intent. It's just like there's just so much work to do right now than to work on a page that has these things in it. It's not for lack of will or intent. It's almost ready to go, but putting stuff in it, like we have to figure out what can we share, what do we want to share. A lot of it is under basically, not necessarily NDA, but like we'd rather not share too much about it. There are big things coming, and ultimately, as we've said many, many times before, any decent project out there does not have roadmaps. That does not exist. You know about what is, what has been worked on when it's being announced, and that's it. So, I think, I don't know, I don't want to give false promises or false hope. What I can tell you is, yeah, I mean, we're not, like, we're busy, like we're super busy, and Most of and the great majority of this problem is because like I am generally the bottleneck when it comes to anything um with regards to copy or these priorities and with regards to roadmap. And most of these pages I just don't even have time to get to them, whether it's that or the token page and all of those things. And it's not for lack of will or desire or intent. It's just that by the end of the like days, just like haven't had time to get to it because I'm working on all these other big stuff, and I rather spend my time on providing value around these what we believe very important products that we want to bring to market, which ultimately are the real value drivers. We want to bring them out as soon as possible. So that's kind of where my focus has been.
I think as well, people have to remember with a roadmap, especially with projects in the crypto space, they give out for a whole year. What we're doing is building something that's not really been built before, but we're actually learning a lot and we're actually unlocking a lot of great ideas along the way that can then result into other things and other things. They're not going to be on the roadmap that we built 6 months ago. So it's
Or if
important to,
if or if we start communicating things that we think we're going to be kind of working towards in the next 2 to 3 months, and we put it there and we're really excited about it, but like in the next 1 month or 2 months there's this new, and as I said before in the intro, there's this new underlying technology that just got developed and this and that, and we're like, oh my god, this is just going to change everything. And then you're going to start seeing the roadmap going red, left, right, center. Like you're going to be like, oh, these guys are changing ideas all the time. And not that we aren't. But the thing is, we are adapting in real time with like opportunities that are being put in front of us. And if we do roadmaps, like we don't want to be locked in something we believe is not as powerful as what we just unlocked. So we're just gonna, I don't know if that makes sense, but I think generally speaking, that's why most companies don't share roadmap. It's just because they change all the time, like constantly change, and sometimes they're important change, and that might be perceived as significant or lost of focus or anything like that, but they're not. They're just the natural path of a startup. If you haven't seen kind of what a startup is in terms of the path or the linear, and it's not a straight line. It's like all of these crazy movements, but it's still going in the same direction. It's like a chart.
yeah, I think with a lot of projects, when they do a roadmap, they're only building stuff that's already been built so they can keep to those sort of roadmaps. But when you're building something that is out of this world, then yeah, things do change on literally a daily basis, and it's fun being in the back end because it's just constant changing, swapping, designing, replanning everything. But just the ideas get bigger and bigger, and what the end goal is pretty humongous. But it's getting really close to product release soon, and obviously the first product release, if I'm not mistaken, Jace, will be on chain checkout. When do you reckon we'll start
Yes.
seeing coming to light? Do you reckon that'll be this quarter or next quarter?
Well, the plan is this quarter, and I've said this before. The plan is to have a production ready on chain checkout for projects to deploy on their website with fiat payments and everything. And there's going to be announcement as we go towards production ready of things that are be part of this as we go along. There's going to be a bunch of things coming to light.
And with M token, would that be the first one to be tested and everything on our website, or do you reckon it will just go straight onto projects first? What do you reckon is the plan of action there?
I mean, I think we're just going to greenlight it to like everyone that wants it. We've like from a Yeah, I'm not concerned. Like, I don't think it'll need to be tested just with ours. So I think it's just going to go out there, hundreds of different projects that will get it, you know.
And we're talking about chains next. Chains that the phase of online checkouts. We're talking about Polygon, BSC. Any other chains to start with, or will they be the first two?
I'll know more in the next couple of weeks because it's all liquidity dependent and the amount. So I'll know more, but expect, the chains that are naturally the most in demand. So there's no
Yeah,
reason
and
for
guys,
us to launch on a chain that nobody cares.
gives a fuck about money. Half of them don't care about, sort of thing. With questions wise, that's pretty much everything. There's a couple of ones that we've just really much gone over: ramps to staking to roadmaps. Someone's asked about milestones, and we've just gone through that for this quarter. Yeah, we've gone through it. If anyone's got any questions, please, the time is now to come up on stage, say hello, and ask a question. If not, we'll wrap this up.
Going once, going twice.
Three and
Hello.
final time.
All right. Thanks to all of you that took the time, and wishing you a great rest of the day. And ultimately, I hope you guys are excited about kind of this teeny bit of information about, what we intend on doing with on-chain checkout. We intend on putting to bed and this behavior of on-ramping. And hopefully you guys are excited about that because we are. All right. Cheers, everyone.